So yeah, where do you all watch? Like how, and we can just do a raise of hands. If, how many say you watch most of your content TV on TikTok? Okay. And how many, so we had what, three or four? Okay. How many watch on Instagram or Facebook? Maybe that's where you watch everything. No, not too much. Okay. Oh, a couple here. Okay. And then how about the streamers like Netflix and Hulu and all that kind of stuff? Okay, majority. That's good. And then, do any of you ever watch on? In the industry we call them fast channels. So that'd be like Roku and Tubi and Pluto TV. Does anyone watch on that? A few of you? Okay, nice. And then how many actually just like turn on the TV and watch like cable, like Verizon and stuff like that? A few of you. So we're kind of all over the place, kind of consume it everywhere, right? So I just wanted to point that out at the beginning of this conversation. We'll get into a little bit of what I do and we can get into your questions. Is when I was a student of Mr. Parati 25 years ago or so, which isn't that long ago, the only place we could watch TV was we had to turn on the TV, right? That's it. That's it. You had to do that. That's the only place you could watch it. So since then, since we've all, since I've grown up in the industry and even in your short lifetimes, it's evolved so quickly, the television industry and TV and film and social media and all that, is we're just seeing it in so many different places. So the opportunities nowadays have just kind of skyrocketed for anyone who's interested in working in the industry as well. And I also, oh, he's passing out candy, distracting us. So it just goes to say that what you're learning today is going to evolve so quickly over the next 20 years, or if you end up in this industry, or even by the time you get in college. Like, this is all important stuff to know right away, but just always remember to keep learning and keep looking into the industry and seeing what's next, because, I mean, personally, it blows me away to think that, like, just when I was in college, you could only watch it on DVD, and that was it, and there was barely any streaming, and now the industry has moved so fast. The industry started, like, I don't know, 1930s or 1950s when we started having TVs, and then all the way up to early 2000s, nothing changed. And just in the last 25 years, so much has changed, last 20 years, last 10 years, and I think there was just huge opportunities for especially people going into the industry now to learn and just work in so many different ways, and content is kind of all over the place. So just something I wanted to point out, because I still work in quote-unquote traditional TV, but it's even in my 5 years at the A&E that I've been there now, it's changed so much. So just wanted to talk about that real quick. Let's see, I have a ton of notes here too. I think that's everything. Yeah, and also thinking about how we ingest how TV shows are produced. And we do a show on A&E called Neighborhood Wars. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it's literally just Ring doorbell footage. The fact that, like, we're making TV shows with just the footage from your Ring cameras, from your doorbell. I mean, even 10 or 5 years ago, it kind of blows me away to think that, like, a doorbell is capable of making a TV show nowadays. So it's kind of crazy. So just look at everything around you that's happening, because something you think about that has a little bit of technology in it will probably end up with a camera at some point, and it'll probably end up on TV, which is a little scary, but at the same time is a lot of fun to think about all the opportunities of things that could be just made into TV shows, could be made into a hit television, could be made into a movie, and whatnot. So just something to think about as we're going there.
It was funny while you said that.
Yeah.
I brought up the name of Kyle Graham Mason earlier.
Yeah.
And when I met with him towards the end of the summer, he was saying one of his projects he was working on was a video that the advertiser wanted him to make it look more like a TikTok video.
Right, exactly.
So he literally had to, like, I don't want to say dumb it down, but kind of make it look rudimentary. And
Yep.
said you'd be surprised how many people are looking for that sort of look nowadays.
Right. It's
Kinda
like
kooky.
you talk about 4K and 8K, and those become buzzwords and things like that. But even in my industry, the content matters. What's being filmed matters more than anything, and how engaging the content is and things like that is the most important part. Not so much like, oh, look, it's shot. You could shoot the most beautiful stuff on an 8K camera or 4K camera. If it's not interesting to the viewers, no one's going to care. But if it's interesting to the viewers and it's shot with a Ring camera in someone's front door, it might do a lot better, and it costs barely anything. So, just something to think about. So I want to start off there, and then just a little bit about myself. As Mr. Parati was saying, I graduated from New Bedford High School, a very similar program that you're all in now. Then went on to actually did a year at BCC at Bristol Community College in Fall River because I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to go to school yet. Or I knew I wanted to be in media and video and film. Always I wanted to be in sports really badly, and we did a little bit of that at New Bedford High School. And so I wasn't quite sure, so I spent a year figuring that out at community college, and then ended up at Fitchburg State for my final few years, and ended up actually mostly doing documentary work and some film work and some sort of TV type stuff, but mostly scripted films and documentary type work while I was there. I shifted a little bit. I really wanted to get into kind of that documentary work and things like that. Just take a step back. But before I made it to school, I did work locally, also New Bedford Cable Access and a few other places. And there's a lot of those opportunities as well, even before you get into school, to try to get in on the ground floor and that kind of stuff. And that definitely, I was very fortunate to have those opportunities growing up, and that definitely was a lot of fun. So went to Fitchburg, 4 years there as well. Did film and video studies. Like I said, we did a lot of stuff we actually shot on film, and then we transitioned to video, and we did a lot of scripted stuff and wrote our own scripts. And then from there, I was lucky to get an internship in Boston at a small film company there, and we did some commercial work. We did a lot of short films as well. Some of it shot on film, some of it shot on video at the time. Some Sundance, short films for Sundance and a few other places. So started off there, was lucky to be an editor there for a short period of time. We were mostly working on Avids there. And then went on in Boston and worked as an assistant editor, some stuff for New England Sports Network, and Element Productions was another small company up there that still exists that does a lot of ad agency work. This Old House worked there for a little while as well. So was shifting kind of into a career into post-production, into editing. Really like the idea of being a storyteller at that point, after everything was shot, and having that opportunity to manipulate the footage and work closely with directors. There's a lot of opportunities on set. For me, it was great to be in post-production where kind of all the eyes were on it. Everyone was really interested in what was happening at that point, and I really liked kind of that collaboration that you have with the producers and the editors in post-production. And then from there, went over, moved to New York, thought I could maybe get into more indie films and documentaries and things like that as an editor, and ended up working, was one of the very first hires for Vice Media. It was just a magazine at the time. Got hired early on as an assistant editor there, and then went on to be an editor, post-production supervisor, and oversaw a lot of the post-production and editing at Vice. I was an editor for about, I don't know, 5 to 8 years or so, around there, editing a lot of our digital content that we were doing there for the web. And then eventually Vice on HBO was our first big show that we did, which was a news documentary style TV show, and worked and hired a lot of the editors for that show, oversaw the post-production on that side, and then eventually went on to build our studio in Brooklyn. We moved from one building to a massive, I think it was about 4 or 5 stories, and we built 50 edit suites. We built 3 or 4 color correction rooms. We built 5.1 audio mix rooms, VO booths, control room, assistant editing suites, a whole entire storage on site, which nowadays, of course, we can do storage in the cloud and everything like that, but we had a massive server room that we built as well. So I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to build all those edit suites. We were mostly on Adobe Premiere. I think we were on Final Cut, and we transitioned when we built the new facility all to Adobe Premiere, and had the opportunity to work with a lot of great editors and find talent and understand what people were really looking to do, and what stuff they like to edit. So some good opportunities there for myself, and then stayed there for a while, and then eventually in the last 5 years I moved on to A&E Networks. They're based in Manhattan and Stamford, Connecticut as well, as where we have our operations and the technical side of things. And so what I do for them is we have, as we said earlier, about 5 or 6 different types of networks. We take in close to 3,000 episodes per year across all the networks that come from production companies literally all over the world. Most of them US based and Canada based, a few UK, but there's quite a few in Korea that we work with, in Australia that we work with, Italy that we work with as well, that make content for us here in the US, or they make content locally and we buy it from them as well. And so all those episodes you see, everything that comes in It airs across any of our networks, like Alone or Curse of Oak Island, Ancient Aliens. What are the other? Some of the other big ones, like I said, Neighborhood Wars, things like that. American Pickers, Pawn Stars, all that kind of stuff. All our Lifetime movies. So a majority of it is produced by smaller independent production companies. Left Field is a big one, ITV is another one, Cineflex is another one. So these production companies will pitch us an idea to the creative team and say, hey, we want to do this show, or they're on season 16 of some series that they just keep doing for us. And then once the creative team is finished putting everything together, putting the episode together, the show gets delivered to my team. So we take everything in, comes in via the cloud, right into a server, and once the file lands, we make sure all the metadata is correct. What episode is the name, the description of the episode number, the title, all the metadata, how it's been shot, comes into my team, and then also the file of the show, so the 41-minute show, if it's a 60-minute show, will come in, and then what we do is we call technical evaluation as well. So we have techs, literally their job is to sit there every day and watch the shows with eagle eyes and just examine every frame of it, all the audio channels, the closed captioning. We also do, I don't know how you're familiar with audio description as well. So they watch through the show multiple times to make sure that it's ready for air, has all the elements for it to be able to air. There's a lot of audio channels. We separate the dialogue, the effects, the music, and separate all that as separate channels, so then we can eventually relanguage the show into dozens of other languages as well. So there's a whole group of techs who watch through, and they'll put markers. They'll watch it through in Adobe, and they'll put markers where they see errors. Maybe the frame doesn't fill the whole screen. Maybe there's a misspelling on a lower third. Maybe there's a shot missing for a couple frames, things like that. And then we send it back to the production companies, who then say, oh yeah, I need to fix that, I'll fix that, or it's supposed to be like that, we want it to look like it's from TikTok, things like that. Yes, Mr. Parati.
Just a quick question,
Yes.
because I know Bella had to do this today. And Ava, how often do they have to fix?
That's a good question. That's a good question. So
They had to do that today.
yeah. So the failure rate when I started a few years ago was, I believe, 92% of the content coming in failed on the first time. We've gotten it better now. It's in the 80s, but most of the content coming in will fail the first time, especially when you put another set of eyes on it. And so that's why we do it. And a lot of it's not stuff you'll notice when you're watching it, or it might not affect the air domestically, but what we're looking at, like I said, there's a lot of additional audio channels, things like that, or we also ask for the entire program without all the text on it. So if it's a show with heavy text on it, we want it stripped. We call it the textless master, so you want it stripped of all the text as well. And what that does is it gives us an opportunity to distribute the show worldwide. So then we can send it to Italy or Korea or wherever, and they can put the text back in their local native language. They can dub it in their local language, or they can subtitle it, whatever they want to do. They have all the opportunities because they have the graphics package, they have a whole textless version of the show, and they have the audio split. So then the dialogue is separated from the actual effects and music, so then they can just hire local folks to come in and dub in the local language. You don't see that as often because that's a little bit more.
You mentioned the graphics package. We did a field trip 2 years ago. 2 years ago, we went to Harvard to check out what they're doing with ESPN.
Oh, yeah.
So ESPN has been farming out all the college productions to the actual colleges. So Harvard is doing it right now. URI, University of Rhode Island, is doing it. And it's funny because ESPN will create a graphics package that's like a cloud-based graphics package. They just feed that to the actual school for a certain production that they're doing,
Right.
whatever it is, a basketball game. The day we went there, Harvard basketball was playing Dartmouth College basketball, and we got a whole tour of the facility.
Nice.
The school itself now, the schools themselves, the money is given to the school, and then the school has started their own whole production company right at the college
Oh, wow.
level.
Nice.
And
That's
they're
great.
hiring students. It's funny, they hire mostly Emerson students. According to the director who was there at the time, he's still there. But they didn't hire one Harvard student to work in production. It was all Emerson, mostly
Right.
Emerson students
Yeah. That's funny.
that worked at Harvard,
Harvard, yeah.
getting paid to do the production. So
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah, and similar to what you're saying about graphics package, we'll do the same thing. We'll have certain shows that are very popular internationally. Alone is a popular one that we do, and so they'll say we want to do Alone Denmark, Alone Germany, Alone Australia. So we'll send them the creative package, which includes our graphics package, so then they can make a version of Alone in Australia that looks exactly like the one in the U.S. as well. So we license all of that out to many other channels all over the world
So
with a lot of our big shows.
license that out, you guys get royalty on all that?
Yeah, so they'll buy what's called the format of the show, which includes all the creative briefing of how a show is created, and then the graphics package and things like that. And then as part of the contract, we even take the show back and could even air it domestically as well.
Essentially selling the idea.
Exactly. Yeah. Which a lot of television networks do as well. And then, going back to where we all started about where you're all watching TV, A&E is a relatively small company compared to Discovery and HBO and things like that, and some of the other bigger ones. But we've been very lucky to get our content all over the place. And I keep mentioning Alone because that's one of our big hits. A lot of folks don't even realize, a lot of viewers don't even realize that's an A&E show because they're watching it on Netflix, because that's where we get a lot of our viewers as well. And so the industry has just changed so much. Like even when you're working for just a small television network, the content that you're creating ends up, as you all know, all over the place. And so it doesn't really matter, whether it started with on a cable network or wherever it started. It can go on for years and years and years. We have some shows that stopped producing 5, 6, 7 years ago that we're still seeing growth from, because the idea or the content is something that viewers really want.
This generation, these guys, like, let's do a show of hands. Show of hands, how many people are watching stuff on Twitter? Raise your hand. Show of hands, how many people watch stuff on Instagram?
I just asked this question to all of them.
They raised their
Yes,
hand?
they did. Yeah. We just asked this question at the
And
beginning.
TikTok, how many on TikTok? Almost all of them, right?
Yeah, and you'll see. I mean, you all probably know better than I do, but I know on TikTok recently they cut up Mean Girls to be, I think, like little 5-minute vignettes,
Yeah.
and made it, and that's a new place where people are cutting up shows differently to say how can we get to younger or different viewers. So A&E does the same thing. A lot of TV networks do the same thing. They look at the show. It aired, on Thursday night. That was its premiere. But once after it airs, how can we get it to as many different outlets as possible? So on an operation side, going back to what I do currently, we're making sure that those 3,000 episodes a year that come to us can be distributed all over the world. And even 5, 7, 10, 20 years from now, we'll still be able to be distributed all over the world, because we're making more content than we ever before. It's kind of crazy. So I think that's kind of a good gist of what I do.
Now, because
Yeah.
you guys are doing like social media sort of aspect
Yep.
sort of stuff, is that like a whole new department that does that? Or?
Yeah, for most companies like ours, there's a whole separate department. They'll do a lot of scene lifts from the shows and things like that and put it on social media for sure. My department's not as involved in that as well.
Because what we notice here, even us, when we do stuff, we're releasing stuff on different
Yep.
social networks,
Yep.
which creates a lot of, it's a big job to get all that done.
It's very complicated to keep that all organized. Where do you premiere it first, and who has what clips and things like that? And that is an entire job. And that goes back to like the types of jobs in the industry. And I've seen it in my world. I started off in post-production as an editor, which is a great track to going into directing or producing, because you really get to tell the stories in post-production. If you know how to edit and you know how to tell a story in post-production, you can very easily start doing it in the field as well. People don't think that starting as an editor means you can move to a director, but a lot of the best directors I know have started in post-production and editing. And vice versa. Some great directors said, hey, I just want to be editors now. And it's a great track either way. But where I ended up is more on operations side, which is interesting because the world of kind of film and video has kind of divided into two worlds. There's a very creative production side of the world that is just pumping out tons of content, as much content as we all can consume. And then there's another side where I'm kind of on, where we're very kind of separate from that world of production, where we're seeing all this content, and my team still touches content that was made 5, 7 years ago, just to make sure it has all the elements that was needed and things like that for Roku channels and Pluto and other streamers and Netflix and stuff like that. So there's the world of film and video and media has kind of divided a little bit on a content creation side, which is your production, to the other side, which is kind of just getting it out to all the viewers as well. And it's a little bit of a separation there nowadays, which means more opportunities for a lot of people interested in working in the field. So yeah, I think that's
we
pretty
can
much.
start with some questions.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm
So
ready.
let's start with Quinn. And Mike, if you don't mind, like maybe repeating the question.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That'd be
Yeah.
great. So we'll start in the back of the room with Quinn. Go ahead, Quinn.
What show or like overall project are you most proud of and why?
Oh, what show or overall project am I most proud of and why? I definitely, going back to, I kind of mentioned earlier, was when I was at Vice, I had just a great opportunity to build an entire post-production facility. And as someone at the time who was working in as an editor and then realized I really wanted to work a little bit more on the technical side but still be involved with the creative, that was just a great opportunity for me to say, to talk to my editors and talk to people that I've been working with for a long time and say, what do we really envision our edit suites to look like, our color suites, our audio suites, and it gave me personally a lot of satisfaction because I was able to kind of build out what people that was working for me and that I really respected to give them what they wanted. Now it all didn't work out perfectly. With some things we weren't able to get. Money's always tough to get by, but get. So that complicated things, but also you're able to be creative. You're saying you start with a certain budget and you say, hey, we have X amount. But now maybe we only have this amount. You have to be a little bit of creative as well doing that. But yeah, definitely building 50 edit suites in Brooklyn and then another 25 in Los Angeles. That's definitely something.
I remember when you were doing that.
Yeah.
Last time I met up with you, it was you and Rob. We met for breakfast.
Oh yeah.
And you were talking about all this high-tech sort of stuff that you were doing.
Yeah, we were doing quite a
God,
bit.
this is light years. I think we're finally catching up to
Yeah.
that, like what you were talking about the last time. That was maybe 5 or 6 years
Yeah.
ago, right?
Yeah. Thanks for that question.
All right, Luke.
So what inspired you to get into media and like video production?
What was
What was
your
my
spark?
what was my
your initial
inspiration?
spark?
I definitely am probably a rarity when it comes to anyone who says they knew what they wanted to do since they were young. I 100% knew when I was in 7th or 8th grade that I wanted to be I was really into basketball and sports at the time, and I was like, hey, I really want to be a sports announcer or work in sports or something at that time, and I was really into it. And then, so that was kind of like my spark at first, but then as I got into high school, I decided I was more interested in music and documentaries and social issues and things like that. So a little bit of the combination, those were the things. I saw a few documentaries when I was in high school and things like that I really.
Talk about the MB Live?
Yeah,
Started that.
and then of course when I was in New Bedford High School with Rob, somehow, I don't know how, I ended up in front of the camera.
Was it your senior year that I started?
Yeah, I think so.
Was it
Yeah.
senior year?
Yeah, somehow I ended up in front of the camera, had a great opportunity to have a class just like you're all doing, and took advantage of that, and I ended up in front of the camera as a host. I have not been a host since then, 25 years later. Nothing against doing it there, I prefer to be behind the camera. So yeah, just having also that working creatively with a team is also kind of was a spark of mine as well.
I remember when you did that first MB Live, you had the band on.
Oh yeah,
The
exactly.
Cuban band, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And remember you had on the Greek goddesses and Greek.
I don't remember that.
Do you remember that?
No.
So anyways, Joseph Almeida was one of those people
Yeah.
who I recently got in touch with. He now teaches at Keith Middle School.
Oh, does he?
Give you a
Nice.
background.
Yeah.
And he still talks about that moment that he came on with Mrs. Jupin's Greeks.
Oh, I think it was for like the theater club or something like that,
Yeah,
maybe, or the
class
drama
line
club.
or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
He
So
still
yeah.
talks about it to this day.
Yeah, so I mean, just like all of you, I had good opportunities in high school, and Mr. Prati is my teacher as well. So that was part of it. I was, interested in sports at the time, then started getting into documentaries and things like that.
One of my favorite skits that you did was we did the Independence Day skit. I don't know
Oh,
if
for
you
the
remember
movie, the Will Smith movie. Yeah, yeah,
Remember
yeah.
that?
Yeah, that one was funny. Yeah, yeah.
Frankie?
I was wondering, like, where do you see yourself in like your company almost in 5 years? Like, do you think it's gonna have like a big change in with social media and stuff, or do you think it'll be doing the same type of thing?
No, it's going to be a big change. I mean, I've just kind of we've been talking about this already quite a bit. The question was, how will the change be in our company and probably in the industry in a whole? I think a lot of it has to go with content and meeting the viewers where they're at. And when I started at A&E 5 years ago or just about 4 years ago, most of the content was still just on cable network. It was still on Verizon or Cablevision or wherever, and that's where people would tune into. But since I've been there, they've embraced what's called fast channels, the Pluto, Roku, things like that, and that's been massive, and we can kind of see the change in the industry. And I think that'll be a big part of the change we'll see is more opportunities, putting the content to as many endpoints as possible to meet the viewers where they are. So I think that's a big change as well. Of course, we have to say AI is going to change things somewhat. What that's going to do, we'll have to figure that out. But I think on a technical side, we'll see a lot of change on AI where we're going to have opportunities to push automated AI work, kind of the boring stuff like logging your footage, ingesting the footage, even making rough cuts, things like that. I think will all eventually be pushed to the AI side, and then we can be even more creative as creatives in post-production and video and things like that.
I'll add to the AI because when we went on a field trip to Channel 25 News last year, at the end of the year, all their script now is AI and their cameras are AI.
Right.
So depending on the script, if the script calls for a close-up of such and such person, the cameras already know how to automatically zoom in to that shot and get it. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's all by the script.
And I think we'll
Literally
see,
by the script.
we'll also see on indie films, it's, visual effects have been has been so expensive since I've been in the business, and to do any kind of big visual effects has been so expensive. Now a lot of indie films and people with smaller budgets will have more opportunities to make bigger films, and then Hollywood will have opportunity to make even bigger ones because all that kind of stuff, because of AI, has become much more attainable for a lot of folks as well. So, yeah, I think those are probably some of the biggest changes we'll see.
Ben?
What's it like being off camera in a scene?
Say that again?
What's it like being off camera in a scene, like watching actors?
I haven't done that too often, but when I have worked off camera, it's been mostly on unscripted or documentary type shows, or maybe in a studio setting like this. And I enjoy it. I mean, you have an opportunity to kind of be part of the production and put your kind of creative ideas into it as well. I like being behind the camera a bit more, so you can get the idea of, the direction of the production and things like that as well. Yeah, good question. Thank you.
Alexa?
Oh, geez. What is the hardest project I've had to work on? Probably preparing for this talk today. No, that's a good question. I mean, maybe going back to the first question was what project has given me the most satisfactory, which was a build out of a facility. That was incredibly hard. I definitely have to say that. We did a lot of live programs as well. Deezer Samara was a big program we did at Vice, and that was extremely hard to build out a live program on a four nights a week with talent that had a lot of ideas and really pushed you to the very last minute. It was one of those things where you kind of said, we got to get on the air, we got to get on the air, and you're changing things right up until the 3, 2, 1 go on air type thing. So that was really difficult. And then making sure you make it to air at that night as well. There was definitely once or twice where we didn't quite make it to air. So I think launching a live program that was daily, we did it 4 nights a week, that was really difficult as well. Yeah.
We did a lot of live sort of work.
At Vice, it was Dita Samaro show, which was a live talk show. It was live to tape. We would tape it at 7 p.m. and it would air at 11 p.m. So there was no time for edits or anything like that. And it would have to go to the broadcaster at the time, which is the company I work for now, A&E. So we would transmit the feed. We would record it, and then we would have about an hour to make any tweaks we needed to make with the program, and then we would just feed it out. Basically, what we recorded would then just play out live a few hours later. So doing that 4 nights a week for about 2 years was quite stressful, but also a great learning experience as well.
Ava?
What does like a normal workday look like for you? Is every day like just about the same?
Good question.
Yeah, good question, Ava. What does a normal workday look like for me? Well, I will say I've been extremely lucky. I'm able to work from home ever since COVID started. So most of my team, actually, we all work remotely. So we all work in the cloud. All of our content goes up into goes up into the cloud, and we access it all there. Even the editors that I work with, they all work with called Lucid Link. So they log into their Lucid Link stations where they have Adobe Premiere, and they all work from home. So a lot of it is chatting on Microsoft Teams, making sure everything comes in on time with my team members. But a day-to-day, basically, we'll have a air schedule for the next 4 weeks, so we'll know what's airing on our networks for the next 4 weeks. So in the morning, every morning, I meet with my team and I say, what are our risks? Do we have any risks this week that we might miss air? Is there a production company? Have they delivered the new episode of Alone or Toys That Built America or whatever it is? Is that in yet? Has it passed? Is it ready for air? And if it is in, is it ready for international? Do we have any risks on an international side? So every morning I meet with my team, we go through what we call what are our risks that week to make sure that we're not missing air for anything. Yes?
Because of everything that you do, I just want to add to this. When you're on vacation or you have time off, are you still like required to check in with your team, or does that ever happen?
We have a pretty big team. We have about 40 to 50 folks, so there's always someone, a deputy who's in charge for someone else who checks out. So I'm very fortunate to work at a company where they're very organized in that way, and they encourage everyone to say, hey, if you're going on vacation, you need to make sure your deputy has everything under control. Yes, if there's an emergency, something happened to a show, just this weekend something came up. The show was about 12 hours away from being aired, and there was a QC check right before air. A show gets checked about 5 times before it goes to air, and on the last one they noticed that all the audio was out of sync, and it was a big show. It was I think it was like Christmas Chef Yes or something, some Lifetime movie that was premiering on Saturday night. I think it was Yes Christmas Chef or something, and a lot of the audio was out of sync. And so yes, that team had to be called in at the last minute, 9 o'clock on Friday or on Saturday to check the footage and check the sync and re-export the show and get it to us for that Sunday night premiere. But working remotely has made that a lot easier for us because we all just log in. You just send a text message to someone, hey, can you check that footage? Can you check that show? They log in, they go check it, and then they're able to check the sync and things like that. So every day is different because you never know what show might be a challenge that week or what show might come in late, and you're kind of just at the whim of the production companies.
When you guys are fixing things, it's like a cloud-based
Yep.
kind of setup, so that
Yeah.
your team can go in and
Yep, they're all
Yeah,
they've been using Lucid Link, I believe, to do, and it's all a cloud-based IP stations that have Adobe on them, and all the footage is in Amazon S3 clouds, and they'll use a proxy, and then it'll up-res as they do an export.
It's similar to what they did, they got like a similar setup.
Yeah.
Going, even though it's not as complicated as like an Adobe Premiere suite,
Yeah.
but they're doing stuff.
Yeah, so we'll do those fixes for the production company. The production company has already delivered us, but because we have all those elements, the extra audio channels, the graphics packages, we can make a quick fix on Saturday night to get the show to air on Sunday morning.
Lila?
Which type of shows require the most use of filming equipment?
Say that again?
Which type of shows require the most use of filming equipment?
Most use of the equipment. That's a good question. So on one side, I'll answer the opposite question first. If you look at a show like Alone, that is a backpack of a bunch of GoPros and footage like that. If you're familiar with that show, they drop them off in the woods and they just give them a bunch of cameras to do. So that's probably the least amount of equipment. And then what would be, I know for our network, Curse of Oak Island, that one they shoot with quite a big crew out on an island off of Nova Scotia, and they're doing all these digs in the ground looking for buried treasure. So that one uses quite a bit of crew. And then there's a show in the Bermuda Triangle as well that they're out on a bunch of boats and doing things like that. So they're definitely doing a lot of drone footage and a lot of crew there. But that's a good. And then on a scripted side, those Lifetime type movies, those obviously have a lot more crew than an unscripted show. So that will have all the writers on set, a lot more cameras and things like that as well. But even those they do them pretty cheaply as well, those movies. But yeah, good question. Thanks.
Gabby, you have a question?
What's my favorite part of what? Say that one more time.
Working in the industry.
Oh, what's my favorite part of working in the industry? Oh, good question. That's easy. I think it's working with other creative folks. I've always been someone who likes to do creative work, and even though I work in a technical operations side, I get to work very closely with the executive producers and the producers and even the editors, and I've been an editor at one point, so I had that creative opportunity for about 10 years working as an editor. So I think my favorite part's probably being able to work in a creative environment and creating content that I care about and I'm excited about. Not everything I make is something I'm excited about, but I've been lucky to work on a lot of programs that I want to watch or I want to create, and I feel and I'm excited about it. So the creative process is definitely one of my favorite parts about it. And learning all, like even today, just Mr. Party walking me through here, I learned new things that I didn't know about his studio and your studio and things that you're doing. Showed me, what was it, We Video? Yeah, We Video. I never knew about that one. And so like just learning about those new pieces of software and new workflows as well is an exciting part.
Just FYI, if you notice, we're a one-to-one school in
Uh-huh.
terms of device, so they all have Chromebooks.
Okay, yep.
And that's why we use Video, because it works well with their Chromebooks.
And it's a web-based one, yeah.
All
Right.
cloud-based.
Yeah, cloud-based. That's great. Thank you.
What's like your favorite show or set you've been on?
Oh, what's my favorite show or set I've been on? Probably the one I mentioned earlier, which was also one of the hardest ones, which was Jesus and Mero. Like I said, we were doing a talk show. We built the studio from scratch in a conference room that was maybe about the size of just this section here. Similar ceiling height, similar ceiling challenges. There was no grid or anything like that. But every night, 2 hosts would get up there and they'd have great guests and built the show. And they would start at 10 a.m. in the morning, and by 7 p.m. they were filming a show every single day. And to see something from start to finish happen and then air that same day, of course you'll see that maybe in sports and news, but to see that in, it was a comedy show, it was a late night show. So to see that environment work and to see an idea that someone says at a 10 a.m. meeting, make it to air 12 hours later, is pretty incredible. So if you ever have the opportunity as your careers grow to work on one of those type of shows, a late night talk show or comedy show or a script show like Saturday Night Live or things like that, it's not for everyone. It's hard work. But if you do it for a couple of years, it gives you a lot of respect for the industry as well. So that's probably.
You mentioned Saturday Night Live, because the first year that I taught, I had a cousin who's now, he's a producer. He works for, you ever see the Property Brothers, you guys? Yeah, he executive produces the Property Brothers shows for HGTV. That's my cousin. But he hooked us up the year I had
Yeah, we went.
Mike as a senior. He hooked us up to go to New York to see, we actually sat in on the dress rehearsal of Saturday Night Live. And we got to see the whole setup there, which was pretty cool. And I think it was Matthew Broderick was the host.
I think he was. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that
right.
was,
Yeah, I think
that
it
was
was.
a good
Yeah,
time.
that was good. Yeah,
Anyway, so
good
great.
question.
Why would you say that there's been more content now than ever before?
Why has there been more content now? I'll tell you why. Because of this thing right here, right? We've all been able to make so much more content because of our iPhones and access to video, like we were saying earlier about the Ring cameras and things like that. And there's just so many more outlets to watch content. The amount of shows that Netflix especially started doing when they launched as a streamer was much more than any other cable network was probably doing at the time. So they kind of upped the game to say, hey, we're going to do X amount of shows per year, and then everyone else. And then the cost to do shows have come down because, as you all see around here, the equipment is much more attainable, it's much more affordable, and you only need sometimes this to make a show. So there is a lot more accessibility to making the content, and I think that's why there's a lot more, and there's more of a need. We're all looking at our phones much more than we used to be. And
Would you say, in going through the years of working in different companies and whatnot, would you say more people are being hired to create the content now than prior? Would you say that, or?
it's a hard thing to say. I think there's more people who are interested in working in the industry than there might have been when I first started. But I also know, just this year we've seen, some companies downsize a little bit, Discovery and Disney and a few others downsize. Maybe they got a little too big. Where I was at Vice also got very big, and they ended up downsizing quite a bit as well. So I think there's the term, what a lot of people say is maybe a correction in the industry, saying, okay, maybe that was too much content. So maybe just to bring it down a notch and concentrate a little bit more on quantity over quality. But at the same time, as I said earlier, you can make a show with your doorbell, your Ring camera. So it's like there'll always be a lot of content. But yeah, it's. I also think, speaking of that real quick, is getting into the industry is not necessarily like you don't have to go in and get that degree. If you want to do that, that's great. But the skills, it's about growing your skills and learning your skills. And there's a lot of universities and colleges or places that will offer just certificates and things like that. And we see it all the time. People who might have changed industries. Maybe they worked as a photographer for a while, or maybe they worked as a writer in publishing, or maybe they worked in IT. And now suddenly they're saying, halfway through their career, oh, I want to work in media. I want to work in film and video. I want to work in TV. And a lot of that is interchangeable nowadays. It's so easy to learn what we're doing with all the access of online.
Jack?
Favorite project or show? Yeah, there's been quite a few. We talked about Deez Samaro earlier. What else? I mean, I think more recently at A&E, I've really liked growing the team. So the project of bringing on what we call the technical evaluators and QC operators and giving them opportunities to kind of build out our workflows. The idea of like building a workflow from scratch and then owning it and then telling the team like, how can we be more efficient? We're always looking to save money and things like that. So definitely building our own workflows is also another thing I really love doing too.
Joe?
Yes.
Yes, Joe.
What is a video?
What is a video?
Is that like what show?
What show?
Yeah.
Is,
What show do I like?
yes.
Yeah, that's a good question. Earlier, Deez Samaro, I mentioned that one a lot. Yeah. I like, personally, I like a lot of documentary style shows. Some of our reality shows get a little too much. I'm not a big fan of those, but I really like more documentary style shows. There's a lot of stuff on the History Channel I really like, Curse of Oak Island, American Pickers, things like that. So I prefer a lot of the documentary style shows over over the reality shows. Thanks for that question, Joe.
Ella?
How do you keep up with all the networks and people and technology and do it in your job?
You don't. You try your best. That's a good question. Ella asked, how do I keep up with everything? How do we keep up with all the networks? Part of it is having a really good team around you and working with some smart people and people that you like working with and trusting them. As someone who's overseeing the department, I can't get into every single thing that's going on every day. So I trust my team to come to me and say, hey, there's a problem with this show. I need you to make this phone call. I need you to help me brainstorm how to figure it out. And then the other thing, how do you keep up with all the technology is, I mean, YouTube's a great source. We'll watch, even as a team, LinkedIn Learning. There's a lot of great resources online to learn about new technologies and going to trade shows as well. I mean, I was going to ask you earlier, Mr. Pardee, about NAB New York. That's usually in, I think, October. I think it's October, late October, which is a free conference in New York City. And you kind of just walk the floor and you get to see all the new technology and things like that. And then just networking with friends. Like we were talking earlier, there's still people that I know from high school and college that I still call up and be like, hey, I'm having a problem with this. I know you work in this field. I have a good friend that I went to school with and he works in visual effects. And so whenever I have a visual effects question or things like that, I'll just call him up. So just staying in touch with a lot of folks that you might have went to school with or high school with or just met on the job. There's plenty of people that I've met on the job that I know. We were talking earlier about virtual studios, and there's a guy that used to work for me and he does virtual studios now, so I always give him a call. So staying in touch with people, relying on other people as well. You can't know everything. If everyone tries to know everything, don't believe them. They don't.
Bree?
Has there ever been any time when you doubted yourself into pursuing media?
Has there ever been a time I doubted myself? Ooh, yeah, probably every other day. No, not that often. But yeah, we all run into those times when we don't feel confident. We meet someone that maybe is better at the job than we are, or there's someone that knows more than you do and things like that. So I think that's part of kind of pushing yourself to continue to learn about new technologies. And then if you meet someone who maybe you feel knows a little bit more than you, you lean into that and you tell them, hey, let's go grab lunch. I want to learn more from you, things like that. So yeah, you definitely, even growing up in the industry and having been lucky enough to have the jobs that I've had, I definitely feel sometimes, yeah, you feel a little doubted, but that pushes yourself to learn more and work with others who may be smarter about certain things. Thanks for that question.
What do you do to make sure a project is like turned in time and like it reach the deadline?
Oh, that's a hard one. What happens with deadlines is, especially creative teams, they like to not think about deadlines and they like to push past them. And if you tell them it's due on Tuesday, they'll be like, oh, but I just need one more day. I need 2 more hours. Oh, we need to redo this, or this host needs to re-record that. So you have to build in the time to understand that a creative team might go past that deadline. And you have to make sure that your technology there's another path forward. There's always a way to take a show in kind of the slow way and make sure it goes through, but you also have to have alternative ways. So what we've done at A&E is if something happens with the creative, or there's a change in the story, or someone gets sick, a host or whatever, and they have to push the schedule, they still have to air it, we have separate paths. So the deadline might be Monday, but if something happens to that show and they can't deliver till Friday and it airs on Saturday, we have a separate path. So it's always about having plan A, plan B, plan C. And the plan B and C are very important because you don't want to tell someone, oh, you have to hit that deadline, it has to come that day. If it doesn't come that day, it's not going to make it to air. It's always like, well, that's the day we need it, but if it doesn't, we have another pathway to get your program to air. So always having a plan B and a plan C, especially on an operational side, is the most important thing. If you're just relying on plan A, it's not going to work. Something's going to break. Something's going to come in late. So always have a plan B is definitely what they say in technical operations side of things. Yeah.
Every day we have something that goes down that we have to correct and fix, whether it be a video wall that's not working properly, whether just now the microphone is not working properly, we have to correct that. Anytime we film in here, we always have issues, and that's kind of like the nature of the business. No matter where you go,
Yeah.
they're looking for people that can correct those on the fly.
Exactly. Yeah.
You guys are able to step outside your box and be not afraid to like correct issues that happen. That's a good thing. And to be able to fail, you guys have to know how to fail and how to correct that failure regularly in this industry.
Yep.
Those of you who know how to correct failing and do it the right way, you'll be in a good spot to be able to work and do more work in this industry.
And everyone understands, people understand that there'll be technical issues. They understand that there'll be, there will be failures with the equipment or with the file being sent. And most people are understanding with that. They just want to know, okay, how are you going to fix it? What's your plan B? And if you come to them immediately and say, well, this is plan B, you're gonna grow quite a bit in that industry if you have those plan Bs and plan Cs ready immediately. That's what I've always found.
All right, let's go around the room. We only have a few minutes left, but any other questions that you might have on your list? If you have another question that you can ask, we'll go around the room. Just raise your hand. I see I have another question.
Nope. That's it.
Any other questions? Wow, one more question from someone?
What if I have anything?
We ran through all of them? All right, maybe what would you say to young people, maybe not in this industry, wrapping up, what would you say to young people in general going out to work? Doesn't have to be maybe media,
Right.
but just in general going out. How many people are you in charge of, by the way?
I have a team of about almost 50, 40 something, yeah, on my team now.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So what would you say, and you could even talk about team, because we do a lot of team building
Yep.
and hearing teamwork in terms of productions, but
Yep.
maybe something about that?
Yeah. I think it goes back to some of the things I said earlier. It's continuous learning. Yes, we all go through school. We go through high school, whether you want to go to college or not, or wherever you end up afterwards, is just continuing that learning progression throughout your career. If you step out of school, whether it's high school, college, community college, or a certificate, or wherever you end up going, or if you're learning online or wherever it is, and you just stop and you say, I'm going to be an accountant or a real estate agent or whatever, or work in media, and you're like, I've learned everything I need to know, and I'm just going to stop here, well, there's not going to be too many growth opportunities. Especially in this field of media, you have to every year continue to learn. And that's hard because it's not an industry where you have to go get a license or you're required to learn, so you have to be have that initiative on your own to want to keep learning. And I know when you're in school, thinking about spending the rest of your life continuing to learn is a hard thing to fathom, but you just you put that time aside every year. You say, hey, I'm going to go take that one course once, for 3 weeks or whatever it is, or every Thursday I'm going to make sure I watch 1 hour's worth of videos on LinkedIn Learning or YouTube to learn about new technology, or I'm going to get a mentor, or I'm going to talk to my friend who works in a similar industry and I'm going to learn about what he's doing, or she's doing, or they're doing. So I think that's in order to grow, you just have to continue to learn. And you have to show the people that you're working for that, hey, I know how to do this, or you have to find something that they're also challenged with. I look at it and say, hey, what does my boss need help with? What does I know that he's challenged with? He might not know, or she might not know. Because there's a lot of times where, especially as you go up in the chain, the further they are, they might not know everything. And so you have to help them as well, because they want to grow. So if they see someone that's saying, like, well, so-and-so knows how to do this really well, I'm gonna ask them to do more of that.
Is that expected by all your team members, or required, would you say? Or?
We do advise them to continue to learn, and there's a lot of courses, especially on, like I said, LinkedIn, and there's a couple other places as well that we'll sign up for memberships for my team and ask them to do 10 hours, 20 hours a week or so to continue to learn. And we'll take them, just like you've taken people to studios, we'll try to take people to studios as well to learn more. Yep.